ancient proverb slash curse that I've seen. It says, may you always live in interesting times. And we live in very interesting times, don't we? But this is the perfect proving ground for our spiritual practice, because everything that we see in the world is a reflection of what's happening within our own being. So all of the suffering, the wars, the battles that are all going on out there, the struggles, are very real within our own beings, within our own bodies. There is this unrest that occurs because everything is transient. Yet we have this dream that, okay, as soon as I do the thing, as soon as I become enlightened, as soon as I get all the puzzle pieces in the exact right place, then there'll just be peace and it will be all done. And then, I don't know, you can go to the beach and drink a Mai Tai. But guess what? You can go to the beach and drink a Mai Tai right now. You don't have to wait. So we can look at what's happening in the world and reflect on it and say, well, how is that? What does that tell me about what's happening within my own being? Sometimes it's very obvious, we things don't go our way and we feel this rush of anger and frustration, and then we look out in the world and we see like a whole lot of people really angry and frustrated. And so there's this obvious connection. But as we learn to control our own being more and more, those disturbances become more and more subtle. We even reach a point where we get so good at meditating, at practicing mindfulness, that we're able to instantly summon a state of bliss. And it feels wonderful. It's great. But eventually, if we open up and try to connect a little bit more, then that bliss, even if it's just on the periphery, it's a little wiggly, wait, and then it filters in, and then now our bliss is muddied. And so again, that can create this opening for the different poisons to come in, where we start to indulge in anger, or we get greedy about our bliss, all of these things that happen. And again, we can turn in and start working on ourselves, but it can be helpful sometimes to contemplate this larger picture of what's happening, because there's very interesting dynamic when we're looking at war and peace. War, that endless battle, that endless struggle, it provides an odd sense of security. It provides a sense of stability because we know what to expect. Like, okay, yep, we gotta put on our armor, we gotta do all these preparations, we gotta get ready to battle the enemy. And there's an odd comfort in that because we can organize it. We can make it very predictable. And if we're well prepared and we know our enemy, we can defeat the enemy in the battle, and then we can go on and gather more resources and gather more strength, and then watch for signs for the next enemy. And this operation of constantly being at war, he said, is oddly stabilizing. Like even in economic markets, if we just look at the economy, investors, if they know there's a war, they know what to invest in. So, oh, defense, bombs, airplanes, the so it becomes, for people that are fortunate enough to be way on the sidelines, they can know where to put their money. So war has this very strange stabilizing effect. So no wonder we've been doing it for millennia. It's very, very bizarre. So we do this as a society, as a global interaction, where if you know who your enemy is, there's a certain comfort. It's like, okay, I know to watch out for them. And we have been conditioned to accept that as normal. And we hear the drum beats of war, and then we're like, okay, and I get prepared. And then, of course, we're like, oh, we want peace. And so we feel good about ourselves saying, no, we need peace. And so you get the whole group of people that just, march for peace. I did that in the 90s. We went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan, all of that. And there's a certain comfort in like, okay, because now war is the enemy. So I always found that expression really hilarious. It's like, we're going to fight for peace. So even in this movement, this desire for peace, we still in our psyches turn it into a battle. We need to dominate and control and um, cordon off the enemy. And then we keep watch for, oh, he's getting rambunctious over there. Let's put him in a different place. And she's getting a little crazy there. And then that's how these autocratic governments are born, because everybody wants that sense of security. But it's all still based on war, war, that that constant beat. It just, we attune to it, and it makes us comfortable in our misery, even when there's devastating effects. It's very, very bizarre. So now we have to look at, well, what are the conditions of peace? Why is it so difficult to actually attune to a truly peaceful existence? If we look at a perfectly still body of water, there's no waves, it's just this pool. It's like glass. Maybe the water is clear enough you can see all the way to the bottom. So the bottom is just perfectly clear. And we enjoy that. But there's a part of it that makes us a little uneasy, because we're waiting. What's going to happen? Stillness, but we're in motion. Everything's in motion. Everything's moving. So there's this expectancy, this uneasiness, like what's going to happen with that water? Will a leaf fall from a tree and hit it and make some ripples? Maybe a bird flies over and poops and splashes, and now we have big ripples. And it changes things, and there's a certain delight in that change. But then if we were attached to that perfectly clear glass stillness, then we'll get annoyed at the bird or annoyed at the leaf. But if we just go back to that stillness, that clear piece of glass, if we really contemplate it and stay present with it, it feels good as a rest in between the beats. But then we start watching. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Because if we look at that clear glass pool of water, it's pure potentiality. And that makes us very uneasy. Because we know something is going to happen, but we have no idea what. Like a fish could suddenly come swimming and pop up, jump back. But there's delight in that. So there's a way that we can attune ourselves to peace, to that sense of pure potentiality. And it's very childlike. It's probably best described as just curiosity. If we can allow our guard, that part of us that's trying to control that beautiful clear glass pond, it's just perfectly still, and we're just enjoying that stillness. If we can embrace that sense of expectancy, not as how do I protect this place? How do I keep it exactly how it is? Because that's a dream that's never realized. Well, I guess it could be if you take a photograph. You can take a picture of it. But now you're one step removed from reality, right? Now you're just stuck admiring the photograph. But if we want to step into and embrace the full reality, there's a part of us that has to reconcile that everything is transient. And instead of trying to subtly control it by being on guard and saying, okay, I like this little piece of nature just as it is, and I'm going to protect it. And then now we've already set ourselves up for war. And then we feel very comfortable because now we have a purpose and a clear direction of keeping the enemy out, keeping the birds away and the leaves away and fish, and just have our little thing. But then it gets stagnant and the microscopic algae grows, and then now our pure clear pool is gone anyways, despite our best efforts. So there's no way to stop things from changing. But what I'm suggesting is that true peace, the way of peace, is not stagnation. It's curiosity. It's being open to the endless changes that are unfolding both within our being and with our world, and not clinging to something that we might try to label as eternal. This is the swing that we do, is that we go from nihilism, where nothing lasts, it's like everything falls apart, all the way to eternalism, where it's like, okay, there's that inner light, we'll just grab a hold of that and we'll hold on to it and it will be always the same. Neither view is correct. There's this middle path Buddha talks about. But it requires us to step out of this way of orienting to the world through war. Because that's the purpose of war, is to always either destroy everything or to keep everything the same. This pendulum that swings back and forth, back and forth. And then we call those moments where we have people that have stepped forward to hold everything the same. And we call that peace. But that's not really peace because we're still oriented towards war. So I want to invite you to deeply contemplate this and consider, how can I orientate myself towards true peace, towards this true sense of open curiosity where we enjoy the perfectly still pool with a mirror-like glass that we can just see all the way through to the nice sandy bottom, and everything's still, and there's this perfect rest. And then when something happens, we're not trying to make anything happen, but we're allowing for this infinite possibilities to exist. And when the leaf falls and hits the surface, and now we have a leaf floating around in our perfect pool, and then the bird flies over, oops. And it makes the ripples, changes the color of the water a little bit. We pay attention to how our inner being reacts. And in that moment, we decide, am I falling back into this stance of war orientation where I'm going to try and clean out the bird poop and get rid of the leaf and get back to our perfect pool? But if you play with water, so the more you push it and try to clean it, the more ripples it creates, and then it turns into this endless cycle. Or can you be oriented towards peace and you just allow yourself to breathe with it? And you notice that resistance arising, saying, oh, I was really enjoying that empty space of potentiality, but oh, how interesting. And that curiosity of like, oh, look at the leaf, it's like a little boat floating along. And then, oh, wow, so the bird flew over and made a contribution to the ecosystem of the pond. And seeing all of these so-called disturbances as a symbiotic contribution. So instead of immediately going into fight mode, we start to observe it with curiosity. And first of all, just see what's happening, number one. And this is how we enter into mindfulness, right? As we start by just paying attention, not trying to control or change anything. We're just perhaps becoming aware of our mind for the first time and noticing the tendencies that arise, noticing how they feel in our being. And then from this very calm and curious place, we can start to play. And we can start to notice which games are beneficial to our life and which ones are detrimental. And then we can start to direct our attention towards the games that are more beneficial, that we enjoy more, that are more expansive and progressive. and minimize our time in the destructive ones that create harm for ourselves and others. And it's a very natural, flowing process, just like breathing. Sometimes we take a deep breath and maybe there was a big cloud of smoke and, and then we like cough a little bit. And then we realize, oh, okay, maybe that was not a fun game. Breathing in the acrid smoke, and but it doesn't mean that we now have to destroy every source of smoke. We have to go extinguish every fire in the world. That's the mind state of war. Said, okay, that hurt me, so I'm going to destroy everything. Instead, with this orientation towards peace, we choke a little bit and I'm like, oh, that was not helpful. That was not beneficial. And so, how can I move myself? How can I go with this flow and let myself have clearer air? How can I not choke on the smoke? And sometimes it means actually getting up and putting out the fire. Other times it means maybe the fire is meant to be there and somebody's cooking their dinner. And that would be very rude if you went up and doused somebody's fire as they're cooking their dinner. So instead we take stock. We actually approach it with mindfulness and recognize our own needs. So, oh, okay, they're cooking dinner right there. So, oh, I can just move 10 feet over and I'm not sitting in the smoke anymore. And oh, look, now I can make a new friend. Maybe they'll share some food with you. Maybe not. But it's a different orientation, is what I'm saying, than what we are accustomed to, what has been conditioned into us for millennia. But because we live in such interesting times, we are at a point in our civilization where we can make this orientation jump, where it's fully possible to alter the way that this world interacts at both the microcosm level in our own being and at the larger level as a world, and then even when we develop space travel, even at that level, we can create the opportunity to breathe peace and curiosity and explore and play instead of just always fighting, 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 fighting. This isn't something that we can impose on other people, because guess what? That's just the drumbeat of war. You will be peaceful and you will be curious. It doesn't work. But what we can do is pay close attention to how we are oriented in our own being every day. When we encounter the unexpected, we can ask ourselves, am I going to deal with this situation from an orientation of war? Or am I going to deal with the situation from an orientation of peace? And it's a continual choice. It's not one like everything on the spiritual path. It's not one that we just wake up one day and we say, okay, I'm going to be peaceful from now on. Because guess what? That kind of declaration, it's a declaration of war. So we have to be gentle. We have to be curious and make it a serious question when that comes up, when a situation arises that is unexpected, that maybe we have gotten everything just so, the way that we prefer it, and we finally have that moment of rest, and then something comes in and disturbs that moment of rest. That's the moment of choice that we can say, well, can I deal with this through curiosity and openness? Or am I just going to fight to make it how I want it? So we have this endless choice, the drum beats of war or the breath of peace. It's very interesting. The more that we choose to this breath of peace, just take that moment to fully embrace. We inhale and we embrace the situation in all its unknown factors. That act alone strengthens us. It gives us tremendous forbearance and resilience, and it elevates us to a point that we see options that simply were not available if we were to choose the option of war. Again, it's scary, it's unknown. We don't know how it's going to work out, we don't know how it's going to play out, but it will be play. There will be uncertainty. So we can ease into this a little bit at a time and become comfortable with that sense of groundlessness, that sense of not knowing where we're going to step next, not knowing how the next interaction with somebody's going to be. And when we give that kind of freedom to ourselves, then we're able to give it to others. There's this wonderful practice you can do is every time you meet somebody, drop all of your preconceptions. So it might be somebody that you've known for 20 years, it might be somebody that you've known for your entire life, and they know exactly where all your buttons are, know how to irritate you, and they know how to make you feel good, safe. And so you have all this swirling around your mind, and you have your mental picture of like how they are, because if they know where your buttons are, you know where theirs are. So when you meet them, you can play this game of just dropping all of that. And it's like you're meeting them for the very first time. And you create this openness of possibility, of complete endless possibility. And you just say, hi. And you leave it open for how they are going to be, because you drop any mental box of who you think they are or how they should act. And then you have a completely different interaction with that person in that moment than you would have if you came, with all your battle armor. Say, okay, this is who I am, this is who you are. We're gonna have this showdown. So we can practice this in our little daily interactions with other people. And then it starts to ripple out into the whole world. But again, it starts with the interactions we have with our own being. So we go to sleep at night. Some people go to sleep in the day. But anytime when you go to sleep and you wake up, allow that sense of curiosity to fill you and explore for just a moment before you move and be like, oh, hello, body. How are you today? What are you what are you like today? What are you experiencing today? What can you do today? And that way, whatever happens, like if you're, your shoulders out or your neck's a little twisted, it doesn't come as a battle to overcome. It comes as a game to play. That, oh, my neck's a little stiff. So what game would you like to play to feel better? It's like, oh, let's do some stretching. See how that goes. And so instead of battling with our own bodies, we can do this breath of peace, this open curiosity. So try that, play with it, see where it takes you. And then, of course, the foundation for all of our practice is meditation. So we'll do some meditation. See if we can integrate this a little bit more.